Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things, and welcome to another video, and welcome to my April TBR / pile of possibilities. Today I'm going to be talking about some books that I may or may not read in the month of April. As I've said many times before, every TBR I do is a pile of possibilities. I never get to the end of my TBR, and that's absolutely fine by me. It's more just for me to gather my thoughts and my plans for a coming month and have a look at some of the books I want to read. There are also a few readathons taking place in April that I want to talk about today. So the main one that I'm doing in April is my own readathon that I'm hosting, the TBR Clear Out Readathon. I'll leave more links down below with more information about that. But I'm hoping to get through quite a few books from my sort of long-term TBR and to prompt myself to read some books that I've been meaning to read for ages. And then there are two other readathons I'm hoping to slightly take part in / have a nod to in my reading. So there is People April, which is hosted by Roz from Scadley Daddling About the Books, Elizabeth from Bookins and Books, and Brian from Bookish. And People April is all about reading non-fiction about real people, so memoirs, biography, that kind of thing. And then there was also Gaskell in April being hosted by Art from the Bookshelf Odyssey, which is a readathon and read-along all about Elizabeth Gaskell, and the read-along sort of group book for the month is Wives and Daughters, so I'll leave more information about that down below. Before I get into my readathon TBRs, one book I will definitely be reading in April is The Glassblowers by Daphne du Maurier. This is my historical fiction book club pick for April, which I run over on my Patreon. I'm looking forward to reading this. I've placed a hold at the library and it hasn't come in yet, so I'm really hoping it comes in before April. But yes, I'm looking forward to reading that one. I've read 3 books by Daphne du Maurier before. I like her writing in general, but I haven't read anything by her for a little while. So I'm looking forward to The Glassblowers, which I believe follows a family of glassmakers during the French Revolution. I am also hoping to read a few more books from the long list of the Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction in April. I read 2 in February, 2 in March, and I will try and read 2 or 3 in April. Which ones I read will partly depend on what library holds come in when, and also on what ends up on the shortlist, because the shortlist is being announced in the middle of April. One book I definitely do want to read, and I'm going to try and read before the shortlist is announced, is Mother Naked by Glenn James Brown, just because I really like the sound of this one and I am looking forward to reading it, but I also feel like maybe it won't make the shortlist, and I may be wrong about that, but I feel like it's one that I would like to read before the shortlist is announced. The other 2 I have on hold from the library, which I will try and read in April if they come in, are The Land in Winter by Andrew Miller, which I'm looking forward to. I really like Andrew Miller, and The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden. I don't think my library hold of The Safekeep is going to come in for ages. I stupidly didn't put it on hold until a few days ago, by which time the Women's Prize longlist had been announced, and The Safekeep is on that, and therefore it suddenly got a ton of holds, which it hadn't had before, even though it had been longlisted for the Booker, which is interesting. I feel like the last time I looked, it was just like available to borrow from the library on audiobook, so I just didn't borrow it immediately, and now I'm like 21st in the queue. I feel like the chances of that being on the Walter Scott Prize shortlist are quite high though, so maybe I'll just read it in June. Is it going to come in by June? Probably not. Anyway, I will probably read some books from the Walter Scott Prize longlist in April, but I don't know which ones. I do want to read some in April, but my main priority is the kind of like TBR Clear Out Readathon, and none of these books are like on my physical TBR, so we will see. But I will try and read some. I know I haven't spoken about what the last 3 books are about, but I feel like I've spoken about the Walter Scott Prize quite a lot, so I'll leave my video link down below where I go through the long list and kind of what all the books on the long list are about, and I'm sure I will review them as and when I read them. As I said, I'm also possibly going to take part in Art's readathon Gaskell in April. Basically, I have so many other books I want to read, but also when presented with the opportunity to take part in a read-along of Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell and reread Wives and Daughters, one of my absolute favourite books of all time that I haven't reread for a few years, though I have read it many times, I just feel like that's not an opportunity I want to pass up. And I have a really good audiobook of Wives and Daughters, so I think I'm going to listen to some of the audiobook of Wives and Daughters throughout the month of April. I probably won't finish it in April, it's quite a long book, but in general I do like having a reread audiobook on the go, because there are some occasions when I would listen to an audiobook, but I don't want to be listening to an audiobook I've never listened to before, for example, when I'm driving. So I will probably read bits of Wives and Daughters in April and carry it over into May or whenever as my kind of like reread audiobook for a while. And yes, I love Wives and Daughters so much. It's such a wonderful novel, one of Gaskell's absolute best. It is the story of Molly Gibson and her father, and what happens when her father remarries and a new stepmother and stepsister enter Molly's life. It's a love story, it's a coming of age story, it's a small town novel, and I love Wives and Daughters so much. So yes, I'm really looking forward to rereading that. Okay, and then pretty much everything else in my TBR sort of works for my own TBR Clear Out Readathon. Some of these books also work for other things, but I will talk about that as I go. So yes, the TBR Clear Out Readathon is a readathon that takes place for the whole of April, which is all about getting to books that have been in your TBR for a while, and just like giving you a prompt to pick up some of those books that you've been meaning to read for ages but haven't. I feel like there's been a lot of discussion on BookTube over the last like month or so about like moving away from a culture of like counting how many books you're reading and counting how many books are on your TBR, worrying about how many books are on your TBR and that kind of thing. I think there's been a lot of discussion about how we should, chill out about everything. And so I was thinking, I feel like if I had created the TBR Clear Out Readathon like now for the first time, I probably would call it something different. But obviously I first did it back in 2020 and I didn't really think about the fact that it's called like the TBR Clear Out, like clear out your TBR. Like it's a problem that you have lots of books in your TBR, or like your TBR is like, something to do spring cleaning on, which is not really how I think about it. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. Maybe I'll make a video about that stuff. Maybe I won't. I'm someone who like finds gamifying my reading and counting how many books I read and like trying to balance my TBR. Like I find all of that stuff quite fun rather than like pressured. But I appreciate that's not how it is for a lot of people. So yes, anyway, that was a very long tangent to lead into my TBR Clear Out Readathon, which is mostly just about getting to some books you've been meaning to get to for ages. I often find that I find some gems and some really wonderful reading experiences from books that have been in my TBR for a while that I have kind of been neglecting or forgotten about. To a certain extent. Okay, so anyway, there are several prompts in the TBR Clear Out Readathon. One of them is to set your own like numbers goal if you would like. I'm going to try and read 10 books from my physical TBR in April. Whether I will do that, I don't know. Maybe I will read more. My palette of possibilities is very long, but that's fine. So I would like to try and read, 10 books from my physical TBR, and I would also like to read at least one audiobook that has been like on my TBR or like my meaning to read list for ages, because I do have quite a few audiobooks downloaded that I have been meaning to read for a while and haven't. So I thought it'd be nice to kind of include that in my TBR Clear Out Readathon this year as well. So yes, I would like to try and read 10 books from my physical TBR overall, but I would definitely like to try and read 4 of the books that have been in my TBR for the longest, of that kind of like pile list of 19 that I made for myself at the beginning of the year. I'm doing okay. I've read 6 of the books out of 19, so I'm pretty on track, but it would be nice to get ahead of my plans and read like 4 of them or so in April. So second challenge for the TBR Clear Out Readathon is to read a book that has been in your TBR for a very long time, and I think the book that has been in my TBR for the absolute longest, taking from my other TBR from over here, is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, and I am really keen to read this soon, to be honest, mostly because I really want to read James by Percival Everett, and I feel like I will get more out of James for having read Huckleberry Finn. But I am also interested in reading Huckleberry Finn itself. It's a 19th century American classic coming of age story. I think there will be a lot in here that I will find interesting, and then hopefully I may try and read James in May as well, but anyway, we will see. The next prompt for the TBR Clear Out Readathon is to read a book that has been in your TBR for a very short time, and I have a very new book that I've only had, well, like a day or two when I'm filming this, and that is Natasha Pulley's new book, The Hymn to Dionysus, which obviously I'm going to read immediately. I'm very excited. Natasha Pulley is probably my favourite author who isn't from the 19th century, and I just am very excited for her new book, which is a Greek myth retelling. And I think it's going to be excellent. I don't know very much about it except the title, to be honest. It's called A Hymn to Dionysus, and it's by Natasha Pulley. And that is all I know and all I need to know, you know. I'm very excited, and I think it's going to be great. And am I going to start reading this immediately, as soon as I finish the book I'm currently reading at the end of March? Yes, possibly. Yes, I'm excited. The next prompt for the TBR Clear Out Readathon is to read one of the longest books on your TBR, and I thought I would use this prompt to prompt me to finally finish Varney the Vampire in April, because I've been reading this for a year and a bit, and I'm reading it very slowly, a bit at a time, and I really enjoy it whenever I pick it up, but basically I don't pick it up very often because actually I don't think slow reads work for me. Like, I think it's silly of me to have tried this, and I've done it with a few other books before where I try and read them like a bit a week or whatever, and I just never end up doing it. Like, I'm definitely a person who works better with, like, here is the book I'm reading currently, and then I read that book. But that is also quite hard to do with a book that is this physically large. I mean, you know, in comparison to Huckleberry Finn, you can see it's a massive tome. It is like twice the size of Huckleberry Finn, like height-wise as well, not just like how thick it is. But it is a long book, and I am enjoying it a lot, and it'll be really nice to try and finish it in April, and actually like dedicate some more time to it. So that's my plan. We will see. The next prompt is to read one of the shortest books on your TBR, and I have lots of different short books on my TBR, but I think the one I'm probably going to pick is not actually the shortest, but a short one that I am excited to read soon, and that is this. This is 100 Years and a Day by Tomoko Shibasaki. This is a Japanese short story collection translated by Polly Barton. And I've read one book by this author before, Spring Gone, which I read a while ago and enjoyed. I don't remember it too well. It hasn't hugely stayed with me, but I'm excited to read some of her short stories. I love short story collections, and I haven't read any short story collections, I think, so far in 2025, which is possibly because I read a lot of them at the end of 2024, but it'll be nice to pick up one. And this is only sort of 200 pages long. And actually, if it's got 34 stories and it's only 200 pages long, the short stories themselves must be very short, which I quite like. So I'm quite looking forward to this. I think this will be quite interesting. Then at number 10, the prompt is to read a book from your TBR that you fear you have lost interest in. And I definitely feel like I'm quite bad for acquiring books, not reading them for a while, and then I sort of feel less excited about them, even though there might be books that I will love. So I picked a few books from my like long-term TBR that have been on my bookshelf for like more than a year and a half, and all of them actually are proof copies, which I think I'm also quite bad for. Like, once a novel that I have a proof copy of has come out, then the momentum is slightly like gone, and then I end up not reading it, and I feel quite bad about that. So yes, here I have The Hollow Sea by Annie Kirby. I feel like this is probably the novel that has been on the most like TBRs, a pile of possibilities, that I have not yet read. And I am interested in reading it. So I think this is a kind of literary fiction novel, which is about a woman like dealing with infertility, and like living alone on an island and thinking about her life, and I think this will be quite interesting. It may be that it's not for me, it may be that it's too literary for me. I'm going to start this. If I'm not getting on with it, I won't finish it. I think one of the reasons why it's sat on my TBR for a while is because I am a bit concerned that it might be sort of more literary and meandering and quiet than is my usual taste, but I do really give it a go, and I have heard good things. Then I also have here A Proof of More Than You'll Ever Know by Katie Gutteretz. Again, this came out in 2022 and I still haven't read it. But this is a crime novel, thriller novel, I think about a true crime writer who gets like caught up in crime in her own life. And I think this will be really interesting, and I think this will be quite gripping as well, so I should try and pick this up in April. And then I also have The Awakenings by Sarah Main here, a historical gothic novel that I think I would probably really like and has just sat on my TBR for too long. I have a proof copy. This is set in the late Victorian period, which I always love. I also don't think The Awakenings would take me very long. Like, it's only 350 pages, and I think it's a very me kind of book, and for some reason I just haven't picked it up yet. So there we go. I will try and read this in April. Then the next prompt for the TBR Clear Out Readathon is to read a book that you are very excited to get to, and obviously, like, The Hymn to Dionysus by Natasha Pulley would absolutely count for that. But there are some other books on my shelves that I am quite keen to get to, but end up like never being the priority. So I thought I would pick out some of them for this. So one from just out of shot on my TBR is this. This is The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Am I going to read this in April? I would like to, but whether or not I actually manage to, I don't know. I feel like this is one of these books I've meant to read for such a long time, but I am excited for it, and I hear such good things. Like, I really think I will like this one. It's a crime novel with a twist, with a speculative element, I guess. So a murder occurs, and then the main character, the person solving the murder, wakes up every day in a different person's body, like on the day of the crime, seeing things happen from a different perspective. I think that's right. Yeah, I'm excited to read this. I think this will be really good. And then also something I have been meaning to read for ages. Again, actually, I feel like this is one that I keep like picking up, taking with me when I'm like away for the weekend and then not starting and then not reading. And I really want to read it because I love George Gissing so much. He's a wonderful Victorian writer, and this is his novel Demos. The subtitle is A Story of English Socialism. I don't know much more about it than that, but I'm very interested in the history of socialism in the Victorian period, and George Gissing in general, in a lot of his books, has a lot to say about class and inequality, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I think this one will take me a bit longer, but I would really like to try and prioritise it in April. I mean, I have far too many books on this list anyway. Or like, my TBR pile has now got so big that it's on screen. Anyway, it's fine. This is because I have too many books, but I do love a pile of possibilities. But how many of these I'll actually read, I will see. It doesn't matter. I enjoy doing a TBR. I would like to try and read one of my comic books in April though, because I'm really looking forward to reading the 2 X-Men comics I have, big sort of bind up of comics, and I'm going to try and read the X-Men one, X-Men Legacies, I think it is. I don't read comics very often, but when I do, I really enjoy them, and it's quite nice to read something that is quite different as well in form, so I think I'm going to try and read X-Men in April. That's definitely enough books, right? But I am also sort of half doing Ben's Read Good Challenge throughout the year. I mean, I failed in February, but I succeeded in March and January. Have I actually properly done it any month? Not really, it's fine. But the challenge for April in Ben's Read Good Challenge, which I'll leave more links down below about, is to read a book that has been previously longlisted for the Women's Prize. And I do have a book on my physical TBR that I am quite excited to get to that has been longlisted for the Women's Prize in the past. Where is it? Here we go. Which is A Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett, which I've been meaning to read for ages, and I think I will really like. I'm really excited and keen to read this one because I know it is kind of inspired by or in conversation with Passing by Nella Larsen, which is like probably my favourite 20th century classic, and I think is incredible. So I'm excited to see like how Brit Bennett explores that book, as well as telling the story about 2 sisters whose lives go in very different directions. And yeah, I'm excited for this one. It'll go on the pile of possibilities. I'm not very good at making a short list. I think because I'm always just like so excited to read everything. Therefore, if I make a list of books I want to read, it can just like, it's really hard for me to do a list of 10, even though I know I'm not going to read 20 books in a month. Anyway, the other readathon, which I mentioned earlier, that's happening in April, is People April, and I have 1 book on my physical TBR. Well, I have 2 books that would count for that actually, but I'm not going to read one of them yet. What am I? No, I'm going to save that for Non-Fiction November. Sorry, just very indecisive. I think I'm going to try and read this in April. This is Avoidance, Drugs, Heartbreak and Dogs by Jordan Stevens. This is a memoir about Jordan Stevens' life, about mental health, about masculinity. And I got this as a proof copy at a Canongate event, influencer event last year. And Jordan Stevens just sounded so interesting as he spoke, and I was excited to read his book, and then like nearly a year's gone by and I haven't read it, and I feel like the further I get from that event, the less excited I will be to read this book, and so I do want to read this book, and I should, and it would be a good fit for People April, so we'll see. And then I realised I didn't have any books by Anthony Trollope on my TBR for this month, and I have been trying to read a book by Anthony Trollope every month, so I do have on my physical TBR, which has been there for a while, this short story collection, which is the 2 heroines of Plumpington and Other Stories, which I would like to try and read in April. And I don't think this will take me too long. And it's short stories. And as I said, I feel like I haven't been reading as many short stories as I would like to so far in 2025. I also haven't read like any plays or poetry. I've been very like novel focused so far this year, which is a shame because I like lots of different things. But there we go. Yes, so I'm going to try and read this short story collection in April. I have actually read some of the short stories in here before. So I think I will probably skip Christmas at Thompson Hall because I've read it before, and also it's not Christmas. Let me tidy up my sad stack of books all falling over together over here. Finally, as I said, I would like to try and read some audiobooks that have been on my audiobook TBR, or sort of my intentions for audiobooks for a while. So there are two books that I've had downloaded on my phone for like a year that I haven't started listening to yet. I might try and read one of them in April, which I probably will manage to fit in because I feel like audiobooks are like at least a third of my reading these days, if not slightly more. So yes, really they should be a third of my TBR. Anyway, so I am gonna try and listen to either or both Record of a Space Born Few by Becky Chambers, which is the third book in her Wayfarer series. I loved the first two, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet and A Close and Common Orbit, and I haven't read from this series since like 2020, so I should. And I'm going to try and read Record of a Space Born Few in April. And then the other audiobook I've got, which I might listen to, is The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey, which is a sort of coming-of-age story with a crime element, I think, set in 1980s Yorkshire. I think it's 1980s, which I've heard good things about. And I went to an event last month where Jenny was talking, and it was just really, really good. And she's very interesting, and the book sounded really interesting, so I definitely want to try and read that soon. I think there's also a decent chance I'll listen to some Agatha Christie books with Nick, because we've been really enjoying listening to lots of Agatha Christie together in March, but we will see. Okay, that's definitely more than enough books to be getting on with for my pile of possibilities. I think I will read half of these. Which half? I don't know. That is fine. I feel like basically making really long piles of possibilities allows me to both like set myself a list, which I really like, but also allows me quite a lot of freedom because I know I won't actually read all of these books. I think I can safely say that I will read The Hymn to Dionysus in April because it's Natasha Putley, but otherwise, who knows? I just knocked my books everywhere and definitely jogged the camera and probably upset my microphone and dropped Vine and Vampire on my foot, which is a very heavy book. So there we go. Joyous way to end this video. Thank you for sticking around for another episode of Katie Can't Decide What to Read. I'm quite enjoying doing monthly TBRs now, even though they are chaotic and I never read the books I'm saying I'm going to read. That's part of the fun of TBRs on BookTube, I think, for me. I love making lists, but also sometimes you don't tick off everything on that list, and that is fine. So there we go. That is enough for today. Do let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books and if there's any of them that you think I should prioritise in April, because I probably do need to know what to prioritise at some point. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.